I'll never forget the sound my daughter made that morning. That sharp gasp when the hot coffee hit her arm. It was the kind of sound that freezes your heart mid-beat. But before I tell you what happened, you need to know how that day started. That day was supposed to be special. Our first real trip in years. Just me and my daughter, Layla. She had just turned 16 a week earlier, and I promised her a getaway before school started again. Somewhere sunny, peaceful, a small father-daughter escape from the noise of life. We left home before dawn, laughing at how empty the streets were. She had her headphones in, quietly singing along to her favorite playlist. I glanced over at her. Ponytail, backpack, that sleepy smile she always got in the mornings. For a moment I thought, she's growing up so fast. At the airport, things went smoothly. Security was quick, the mood light. We grabbed breakfast sandwiches and hot chocolate from a cafe near the gate. She was telling me about a TikTok dance she wanted to learn, while I teased her about how I could probably do it better, which made her roll her eyes so hard I thought they'd stay that way. When the gate agent called our group to board, Layla's excitement kicked in. She loves window seats. Always has. Ever since she was little, she'd press her forehead against the glass, watching the clouds rise and the world shrink beneath her. So when our tickets read 14A and 14B, her smile said it all. We got to our seats early. I helped her put her backpack in the overhead bin, then settled beside her. The hum of the engines, the chatter of passengers finding their places, that faint scent of jet fuel mixed with brewed coffee. It all felt routine, familiar. Then, as I buckled my seatbelt, I caught sight of her. A woman walking down the aisle with a scowl that could cut glass. Designer bag. Bright red lipstick. Expensive perfume that hit before she even spoke. She stopped right next to us, glanced down at Layla sitting by the window and frowned. "That's my seat," she said coldly. And just like that, the calm before the storm ended. At first I thought she was joking. Maybe she'd misread her ticket. Maybe it was just a mix-up. But the look on her face told me otherwise. "This is 14A, she said, crossing her arms. "That's my window seat." I looked at my boarding pass, then at hers, which she was holding like a weapon. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "this says you're 14C. That's the aisle." Her lips twisted into a smirk. "I don't do aisle seats." She said it like she was announcing something profound, like the world should rearrange itself for her comfort. Layla looked between us nervously. "Dad, it's okay. She can have it if she wants." Her voice was small, unsure. But I shook my head. "No, sweetheart. You don't give up what's yours just to avoid someone's attitude." The woman, Karen, because let's be honest, she fit the name perfectly, gave a dramatic sigh. "Unbelievable," she muttered loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Some people have no manners." A couple of people looked over. You could feel the tension starting to build. I tried again, keeping my tone steady. "Ma'am, if you'd like a different seat, the flight attendant can help you after boarding." But Karen wasn't having it. She leaned forward, her perfume thick in the air, and hissed. "Little girls shouldn't sit by the window anyway. They just scream during turbulence." Layla's face fell. Her hands folded in her lap, her shoulders shrinking. That's when I lost my patience. "Enough," I said, voice firm but calm. "Please take your seat." The flight attendant finally appeared, young, polite, doing her best to manage the situation. "Ma'am, what seems to be the issue?" Karen turned instantly sweet, putting on her fake customer service smile. "This child is sitting in my seat. I paid for a window." The attendant glanced at both our tickets. "Actually, ma'am, 14A and 14B belong to them. You're 14C on the aisle." Karen's face hardened. "Well, I don't want the aisle." "I understand," the attendant said gently, "but the flight is full." Karen scoffed, muttered something under her breath, and snatched the cup of hot coffee she'd placed on the armrest. Then she glared at us one more time, eyes full of entitlement, and said, "Fine. Enjoy your seat." Before I could even process what she was about to do, she flung the coffee right at my daughter. For a split second I couldn't move. My brain just froze. The hot coffee splashed across Layla's sleeve. dripping down onto her lap. She gasped, a sharp, broken sound that cut through the cabin like glass. Her eyes went wide, more in shock than pain, and her whole body stiffened. I shot up from my seat, my heart slamming in my chest. "Are you insane?" I shouted, my voice louder than I intended. Karen just stood there, completely unfazed. She didn't apologize, didn't flinch, didn't even look at my daughter. She just gave this little shrug and said, "It was an accident. Maybe she shouldn't have been in my way." That was it. That one dismissive sentence made the entire row turn silent. The businessman across the aisle lowered his newspaper. A woman behind us gasped. The flight attendant who'd been helping a few rows back rushed over with napkins and a small bottle of water. "Oh my God, are you okay?" she asked Layla, crouching beside her. "Here, hold still, honey." Layla's eyes filled with tears, her lip trembling. It's fine," she whispered, though her arm was pink from the heat. I could barely hold myself together. "You just threw hot coffee on a child," I said, stepping closer to Karen. "You could have burned her." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop being dramatic. It was barely warm. You people are ridiculous." You people. The way she said it, like we were beneath her, made my blood boil. The flight attendant stood up, her voice firm now. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step forward while we handle this." Karen scoffed. "What, are you serious? It was a spill. Please," the attendant repeated, this time sharper. As she reluctantly followed her up the aisle, she muttered something about entitled families and overreacting millennials. I sat back down, trembling, watching Layla try to dry her sleeve with napkins. My daughter looked so small in that moment, so undeserving of the humiliation she'd just faced. That's when it hit me. Karen had no idea who she was dealing with. Because while I might have been sitting there in jeans and a hoodie, I wasn't just another passenger. I was the first officer for this airline, and she had just assaulted my daughter. About 5 minutes later, a senior flight attendant came down the aisle, her face tight with concern. She leaned close and whispered, "Sir, can I speak with you near the galley for a moment?" I nodded, still trying to keep my composure for Layla's sake. She was quiet now, staring out the window, the side of her sleeve still damp from the coffee. I gave her hand a gentle squeeze before standing. When I reached the galley, the attendant exhaled and said softly, "That woman's causing a scene up front. She's demanding to have you and your daughter moved. She's threatening to file a complaint with corporate." I could almost laugh at the irony. "She wants to file a complaint?" I said, half under my breath. Then I pulled out my wallet and handed her my airline ID. "Here. Tell her the complaint will go directly to the first officer. Me." The attendant blinked, stunned for a second, before her eyes widened. "You're with us." "Yes," I said firmly. "And I'm not going to let her get away with that kind of behavior on our plane." She nodded, straightened her uniform, and walked ahead of me. When we stepped back into the aisle, Karen was by the cockpit door, waving her boarding pass and shouting at another attendant. "I don't care who you have to call," she was saying. "I'll have your job if you don't move that brat." When she turned and saw me, she smirked. "Oh, perfect. Finally, someone who looks like he knows what he's doing." I stepped closer, my voice calm but cold. "Ma'am, I do know what I'm doing. Because I work for this airline." Her smile faltered. "Excuse me." I lifted my ID so she could see it clearly. "First Officer Ryan Hayes. You didn't just harass a passenger. You assaulted a minor. My daughter. And on top of that, you disrupted a boarding process." The color drained from her face. She looked around, realizing people were recording on their phones. "You can't be serious," she started, but the senior attendant interrupted. "Security's already on their way, ma'am." 2 airport officers appeared moments later, their presence filling the narrow aisle. Karen started stammering, claiming it was an accident, but no one believed her. When they escorted her off the plane, the cabin fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in quiet applause. Justice, served mid-air. 30 minutes later. The delay didn't bother anyone. If anything, people seemed relieved. Karen's seat sat empty, her designer scarf still hanging from the armrest like a forgotten flag of arrogance. Layla leaned against the window, quiet but calm now. Her arm had a faint pink mark from the coffee, but the crew had given her a cool compress and some cream. She stared at the clouds, her reflection soft against the glass. I watched her in silence for a while, my mind still replaying everything that had just happened. The smell of burnt coffee was gone, but the anger, that stayed. I couldn't shake how easily that woman had tried to humiliate a kid, and how normal it must have felt for her to do it. Halfway through the flight, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the earlier delay. Passenger safety and respect are always our highest priorities. Thank you for your patience." People clapped softly, and a few passengers glanced our way, offering small nods or smiles. The businessman from across the aisle leaned over and whispered, "Good on you, man. She got what she deserved." I smiled politely, but my chest still felt heavy. I turned to Layla. "You doing okay, kiddo?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah. I just don't get it. Why would someone do that?" I sighed. Because some people think kindness is weakness. They think they can get away with anything if they talk loud enough. She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "If you weren't with the airline, would she have gotten away with it?" That question hit harder than I expected. I looked at her, 16 years old, already realizing how unfair the world can be. "Maybe," I admitted, "but that's why we speak up, even when it's hard." She smiled faintly. "Next time. I'm still taking the window seat." That made me laugh. A real one, the kind that breaks tension. When we landed, the gate supervisor met us, apologized again, and assured me that Karen was being permanently banned from the airline. As we walked out into the sunlight, Layla slipped her hand into mine. "You know, Dad," she said quietly, "you didn't just protect me. You showed me what strength looks like." I squeezed her hand back and smiled. "Some lessons," I said, "come with turbulence. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories like this."